Last week, we talked about the beginning of the Nickelodeon Brawl franchise in anticipation for the upcoming All Star Brawl. We covered the original Super Brawl with all its crazy locations, silly characters, and of course, jank, and then looked at its sequel, which threw in supers, tag team, and even more jank into the mix to make a flawed but pretty fantastic game. If you want to hear my thoughts on that one, I highly recommend watching that video before or after this one so that you can get a frame of reference to compare the games we'll be talking about today. As I kind of alluded to in the last video, Super Brawl 3 and 4 are games I hear less people talk about, and before making this video I had really no clue why. However, after playing them, I can definitively say that this was likely due to this being a very awkward era for the series. There's a lot of very strange choices that kinda killed a lot of interest in the games. However, that said, I do think that there's a lot to like about these games, or at the very least will be interesting to look at. Without further ado, let's look at the first game on our list, Super Brawl 3: Good vs. Evil. Released in 2013, Super Brawl 3 put itself in an interesting place. Instead of being an expansion of the previous two, it's a completely new engine with a new cast of characters, new modes, and a whole lot of new mechanics. One thing I do have to say is that when I posted my last video, I found that saying Super Brawl 3 isn't remembered as much as others isn't entirely accurate. Many people in my comments remembered the game as fondly as the second, with some even citing 3 as their favorite one. Personally, I don't agree, which could partially be nostalgia bias, but at the same time I do see where they're coming from, because while this game is flawed, there is a lot to love. At first glance, this game looks like a massive improvement over the original games. The first thing you'll see is that instead of the characters being directly ripped from the source material, models and all, they've been custom animated in the game's own style, which is awesome. You'll also hear the game's absolutely banging menu theme, which has no right to go this hard in a 2013 Flash game. It's really good. To say a bit more about the characters, the roster is pretty huge this time around. It's split into two parts, as the name suggests, good and evil. The good roster has SpongeBob, Sanjay and Craig, Tough Lips, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Timmy Turner, Bloom, Cora, Adult Aang, the Breadwinners, Squeep, and Bob. The evil roster features abrasive SpongeBob, Plankton, Nudeman, Shredder, Denzel Crocker, Amon, Tano, Master Junji, and the Rabbids. The Gold Ranger from Samurai and Xandred were playable, but were removed, yet again being lost to time. A shame Gold Ranger isn't in Battle for the Grid, because I loved him as a kid, but at least he got playable in something for a bit. Each character also comes with their own set of fans, essentially the supers of this game. Each character has a boy fan and a girl fan, although both play the same. It's a bit of a weird choice to add the extra art, but I do like it. All the fans have pretty interesting designs based off the character they're a fan of, with some being pretty basic cosplays of the character, and some being more intricate references. The game also has some interesting modes. The original free play and tournament modes return, and function basically the same as always. Interestingly enough, the game had an online mode. I can't find any gameplay of it, and I'm sure it doesn't work anymore, but the fact that it had online multiplayer at all is super cool. Interestingly, you could both do free play and tournament online against other players. I'm not really sure how this would work, but it's cool in theory. The other new mode is a training mode, but this time it actually works! It shows your character's special inputs, and the opponent will attempt to run away and block your strings. This leads to the training mode being actually useful for learning about your character, unlike the first game. However, the first time I entered this mode, something felt off. The combat in this game is rough, to say the least, even more so compared to the first game. There are a few good things here, though. For example, the kick button is now an auto combo and you can perform a jumping punch. These are awesome improvements to the game, and have the potential to diversify the cast a ton. In addition, specials now cost 1 point of meter. This may seem like a limiting change, but you build meter like crazy on normals, so it's mainly just there to prevent you from spamming specials. Special inputs are unique for every character again, and the specials range in use in a lot of ways, from zoning to mix-ups. With full meter, you can summon your fan, who will perform their special attack. A lot of them are pretty similar, but they all have their uses. A weird quirk of them is that getting hit during the activation of a fan assist allows you to move during it, similar to Tron Bond's King Servbot in MVC2. All of this sounds like it would make for a great system, right? Unfortunately, something changed with the design philosophy of this game. In pretty much every fighting game, combos have a reward aside from just doing damage. In most games, this comes from the knockdown, when your opponent hits the ground and has to get ready to defend against your next onslaught of attacks. Super Brawl 1 and 2 didn't have this, but had an insane amount of hit, stun, and knockback to put you back to safety after landing a combo. Super Brawl 3 doesn't. There's almost no hit stun and zero knockback, so you end up minus on a hit after almost everything. I feel like the idea was to avoid kids getting looped by Skipper and never touching the game again. Their solution was just letting people wail on each other with little rhyme or reason, leading to a really lame game plan. That's not even to say that characters are created equal. Tano can just attack from halfway across the screen with no risk, while Amon has to keep close and has a special move that's basically a focus attack. Focus attack would be awesome, except this game has no armor and no hit stun, so there's literally no point to do it ever. Essentially, the only trait that matters at all when picking a character is how much range they have. The only thing that I think has a chance to prevent your opponent from just punching you back is cross-ups like Poe's Poe Bounce, but these are so few and far between. It's a shame that the game is so close to being good, but there's so many little things that kill the enjoyment. It's not just the hit stun, there's even more. For example, the training mode is the only place where you can see your special move. In Super Brawl 1 and 2, if you wanted to check your special move input, you simply had to pause the game. In Super Brawl 3, you have to stop everything, go back to the menu, go to practice, pick your character, set up training mode by picking a rival and assists, wait for the match to load, and then you can see your special move input. Why? Why can't this be in the menu? It makes the game way less accessible for no reason. Also, some of the mechanics just make no sense. There's an invisible stun bar like Street Fighter 2, right? But it's basically useless, since it's kinda random when it happens, and combos in this game are non-existent. I don't really know where to put this, but something else that really irks me is the game only has 2 songs. None of the licensed music returns, and that's a huge shame. Honestly, if someone was ever crazy enough to make a community edition of one of these games, I think it should be Super Brawl 3. The art is amazing, but the system mechanics are off in such a way it kills the whole experience for me. That said, this game has a lot of potential, it just wasn't realized. But hey, they actually released a second Super Brawl 3. A weird decision, but hey, maybe this one expanded on the original mechanics in a way that makes the game good? Please? My friends, I introduce you to Super Brawl Just Got Real. This hyper-realistic fighting game that is somehow not the start of a creepypasta, but a real game that Nickelodeon made. The game reuses almost all of the original game's assets, except that the stage and characters have been remade in this weird Photoshop style. Honestly, I don't mind this. I'm all for weird and interesting art styles, and it's a neat attempt to make a game like this in. However, the changes do impact the game in some negative ways, as they tried to cut a lot of corners. First off, the game only has 3 stages and 10 characters. The characters are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, SpongeBob, Patrick, Poe, Gary, Craig, and Abrasive SpongeBob. While there were a few characters added, most of the returning cast plays the same, or so I thought. Upon entering training mode, you'll notice a few omissions. Fans are gone, and there is no meter. Instead, the assist button just does your special for you. However, the inputs are still there, but there's no reason to use them. But then I noticed the worst change of all. The kick button is just gone. That's right, you have one whole attack button this time. One button fighters can absolutely work, but does it work here? Nope. The game suffers from all of the same problems. So removing mechanics only makes it even more bare bones than before. The final nail in this awful coffin is that this game still has online for some reason, despite being even less competitive than the original 3. There's not really much to talk about with this game. Most people assume that it was just some kind of joke game, and is that it kinda works? Still, it's a shame to see such a game with such potential be dashed by a silly joke version that's just awful to play, and then on top of that, give said version online play while the original two are still stuck in their own single-player bubble. At the very least, we can just pretend this was a one-off joke, and they clearly didn't think that this was the direction the series should go in the future. Is what I would say, if not for Super Brawl 4. Super Brawl 4 is a mess of a game, and even for Flash game standards is a straight-up horrible experience. Every semblance of fun from the first few games have been thrown out the window into this mess. I would not recommend playing this game in the slightest. But why, you may ask? Let's get into it. First off, one of the few positives with this game, like all of the other titles, is the roster. The theme this time around is superheroes, and there's a pretty good chunk. Sky Whale, SpongeBob and Patrick in both their movie and TV versions, Sanjay and Craig, the Breadwinners, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Red and Pink Dino Rangers, Harvey Beaks, Goat, Banana, Cora, Plankton, Henry Danger, and Timmy Turner. All of these characters take on their hero personas, which is a pretty cool concept. Unfortunately, the gameplay prevents those concepts from being realized. Super Brawl 4 reduces your attack options from 6 in Good vs. Evil to a whopping 3. You have a single attack button, a forward dash, and a special move. However, the special move costs so much meter that you may as well only have 2 options at a time. Jumping is still a thing, but it doesn't really do anything. Blocking is also almost completely safe in this game still. There's very little block stun at all. In addition to this, winning a match allows you to do a super. Except that these are absolutely terrible. There's no stun to these either, and opponents can literally just walk around while you do this. Not only that, but you can just not do the super, which leads to the opponent trying to attack you before just randomly losing the round, which is incredibly funny, but also very unsatisfying. Actually, the more I think about it, if there's one word that describes this whole game, it probably is unsatisfying. The game takes forever to load anything, as the load times are abysmal. The game has an actual story mode this time, with a story involving all of the heroes falling asleep, and you having to fill in for them, leading to a fight with the actually really cool boss design Tiger Claw. However, beating them does nothing, and the story just kinda resolves without your efforts or Tiger Claw ever being acknowledged. The worst offender of this has to be the For Fun section, which, to be fair, is probably one of the best features in this game. This lets you add all sorts of match modifiers, such as faster gameplay, random effects, and lower HP. However, the game doesn't let you play normal matches this way, and instead just has matches go forever. This would be fine if it took score or anything, but it doesn't. What's more, you may only equip one modifier at a time, and if you want to switch, you have to go all the way back to the main menu, which takes forever to load and just isn't fun. This could have been a saving grace to the game, but it just doesn't have enough to keep it interesting. Nickelodeon themselves once gave Super Brawl 4 their award for Game of the Year. All I have to say about that is I'd hate to see what games they considered worse than this mess. Hey, at least there's not a worse version of— oh wait, there is. Scary Brawl is a rehash of Super Brawl 4, but instead of heroes, everyone is fighting ghosts. Ooh. You'd think they'd add some more characters or modes or something like the original Super Brawl, but nope, it has less content. All you can play in Scary Brawl 4 is the basic story mode, which is now just a fight against 5 opponents who have all been tinted green. There's not much to say about this game, it's just Super Brawl 4, but less features and even worse. And thus, the downfall of the Super Brawl series began. After the disappointing potential of 3, the series took a dive into a soulless game that missed what made the series so special and fun in the first place. However, the 3 highest budget titles are still yet to come. Super Brawl World, Super Brawl Universe, and the upcoming All Star Brawl seem to have a larger amount of financial backing behind them. But is this enough to save them? Find out next time when we wrap up our little retrospective. Until then, I'll see you around!